Okay, this is the last topic for complex numbers. In lesson 5-6 here, we have a number minus I in the denominator. Well, this would be, remember, I is equal to the square root of -1. So this would be the equivalent of an old problem that we did, like 1 over 2 minus square root of 3. Well, how did we get rid of the square root of 3 in the denominator here? Well, because you had two terms in the denominator, you needed to multiply top and the bottom by the conjugate, 2 plus the square root of 3. Because remember, the conjugates, when you multiply conjugates in the FOIL process, the outers and inners cancel out. So your outers would have a square root, your inners would have a square root, but they wipe each other out because this one's positive, this one's negative, and they're identical. Then you would do first times first. Well, that's a whole number. Square root times square root, well, that's a whole number, so you'd have nothing but whole numbers left. So we're going to use that same process on simplifying problems, complex numbers that have I in the denominator. Because the conjugate, again, 2 minus square root of 3 is 2 plus the square root of 3. So the conjugate of 1 minus I would be 1 plus I. So on this particular problem, since we have two terms down there in the denominator, we'll multiply this by 2 plus I. So this will be 2 plus I. Okay. So what's the numerator? Well, 1 times 2 plus I is just 2 plus I. Down below, we only need to do the first, which is 4. And last, negative I times positive I is negative I squared. Which then, hey, I squared, that sounds familiar. What is I squared? Well, I squared equals -1. So this is actually 2 plus I over 4 minus -1, which is actually plus 4. So this is 2 plus I over 4 plus 1, which is 5. Okay? So 2 plus I over 5. So if we do one more of those, here we got 3 plus I, so we multiply top and bottom by 3 minus I. On the top, you have one term times two terms. We need to distribute. So that comes out to 2I times 3, which is 6I. 2I times negative I is negative 2I squared. We'll eventually need to change that. On the bottom, we just need to do first and last. 3 times 3 is 9. Positive I times negative I is negative I squared. So that equals 6I. This is -2 times -1. This is 9 minus a -1 because these I squareds are -1s. So this equals 6I. This turns into a plus 2. This is 9 plus 1. So this is 6I plus 2 over 10. But 6, 2, and 10 are all multiples of 2. So we can reduce that. So your final answer is 3I plus 1 over 5. Okay? So that wraps up imaginary numbers.